Welcome to the Modern Watchman podcast, where faith meets the front lines of culture.
We break down what's happening in the world, what's behind it, and how believers can stand strong in truth.
We're not here to fear the times, we're here to understand them.
Because being watchmen means staying awake, staying ready, and staying grounded in the Word.
Let's get into it. Hello!
Hello!
Welcome to the Modern Watchman podcast. I'm Wendy and this is Tom.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, Modern Watchman. I was going to bring up some Bible verses in regards to why we chose the Watchman, but they're on my phone and we're recording on my phone, so that's that. But we're just going to dive in today with I saw this post yesterday and I shared it in my Instagram and I found it a little bit harsh, but kind of exactly right. And so I want to share it and we can chat about it to see if we agree on it or not. But I had you read it and you already said you liked it, but it's in regards or addressing lukewarm Christians. I've read your comments. I've seen your messages. You keep telling me God called us to be peacemakers. But let me be clear, the way you define peace is not biblical. It is the very mindset that let this nation descend into darkness. You think peace means staying silent when evil rises. You think peace means never offending anyone. You think peace means keeping your hands clean while the world burns. This is not the gospel. That is not obedience. That is cowardice. Real peacemakers are not passive. They do not look the other way. They do not shrink back from conflict. They know that peace only comes when truth is spoken, when sin is confronted, when light breaks into the shadows. Jesus said, "My peace I give to you." But he also said, "Do not think I came to bring peace on earth. I came to bring peace, but a sword." The sword always comes before the peace. The cutting always comes before the healing. There is no resurrection without bearing a cross. So I ask you, was Peter too divisive when he stood in Jerusalem and declared, "This Jesus, whom you crucified, God has made both Lord and Christ"? Was Paul too extreme when he called out false teachers and warned them even angels preaching another gospel should be accursed? Was James too harsh when he thundered friendship with the world is enmity with God? Or were they true peacemakers, men willing to be hated, imprisoned, and martyred because they knew peace with God is never won through compromise, but through war with darkness? For too long, your silence has fertilized the ground for evil. Your fear has given weakness room to grow. Your lukewarm faith has opened the door for a culture where Charlie Kirk could be mocked in death, where children are groomed in schools without the name of God, where sin is celebrated as progress. And now you rebuke those who still dare to speak fire. No, the blood is not on the remnant's hands. It is on yours, because you confused neutrality with holiness, because you thought cowardice was wisdom, because you stayed silent, and in your silence you gave consent. There we go. It's a little bit fiery, a little bit feisty, but I think it's actually hitting the nail on the head as to where we have come as a culture. And I've said it before, I kind of had this initial thought that Charlie's death is the church's, I don't want to say fault, but we laid the groundwork for speaking truth being such a dangerous place to be. And standing boldly for things that Charlie stood boldly for should be commonplace, especially in a country where we still have a majority of Christians. Even though it's only about 65% of people declare themselves Christians, that's still a majority. So it should be a majority opinion is these biblical principles that Charlie Kirk stood on, and yet here he is getting shot, literally for saying these things. So what do you think? Do you think it is the lukewarm Christianity that is to blame, or is there some larger... I mean, it also spoke to me because obviously the Modern Watchman is sounding the alarm. That's the goal here. That's the why I like that terminology and why we kind of chose this concept for the podcast is just being the watchman on the wall, reading the times as God commands us to do, looking ahead and going, goodness gracious, if we don't change course, we're going to be very caught off guard by things to come.
I think there's a really good point in that, at the very least, that like the whole concept of being a peacemaker, being at peace with the world versus being at peace with God, that those two things will like always be in opposition to each other, right? So like I don't think the Bible is referring to an ungodly peace, right? The Bible is referring to being a peacemaker in a godly sense. And so the Lord will not make peace with sin and unrighteousness, right? Does that make sense? So like, I think that there's a really good point just inherently that to be one is to not be the other. And I think the Bible is referring obviously to a peacemaker in God's eyes, which will put you in opposition to the world in many ways. Now, I think what we want to do here is how can we be a people of action, but in a godly way, right? Like
very tricky.
It's against our flesh, because I think my initial reaction to when Charlie Kirk was shot was drive them into the sea. And
Actually, that's what you posted.
That's why I said my initial reaction.
On Instagram or on Facebook.
That's why I said my initial reaction.
I'm just saying. Oh, yes.
You know?
Uh-huh.
And in the flesh, that's the best I can come up with. And in the flesh, it actually is like probably a really good solution in the flesh, but not in a godly way. And so, but I do think there's a lot. That's what my vision, part of my vision for this podcast is like, you know, being the watchman on the wall. And actually, you know, a few years ago, the Lord called me to start a Facebook group in our county. And the words he put on my heart were, we were called to be watchmen on the wall, and that we have to be more
aware,
present. We have to have a presence in our communities, you know, and if we are not the presence, if our church is not the presence, then something else will be. And a lot of this was around the time that, at least locally in Middle Tennessee, you know, there's nowhere safe from it. We were dealing with some of the like transgenderism in the public libraries, and some really, really upsetting content in the children's section, being put on display as the special displays. And so there was a group of Christian community activists who were, you know, taking it upon themselves to like show up and right this wrong. And everything was done in such a beautiful, godly way. And, but either way, he called me to create a group. And that's something I think I would like to talk about on here, as far as just like action items of like, that people can do, that we can help facilitate our presence without like a lot of effort.
Yeah,
like
commitment.
It's not like you got to go, you know, start
consuming.
Turning Point USA all by yourself, you know. And in a real quick like synopsis of that is like, the Lord called me to create this group. There was a specific issue in the county at the time, but there were other things going on that I was like, this is important. And it was actually dealing with just some like county code stuff and all that. And the group gained a lot of momentum and attention because of one issue. And actually, I did my very best to be an admin in that group in a manner that was, you know, fair and you know, just be a leader where it wasn't, you know, one-sided or hateful. Try to facilitate discussion. And again, bringing things into the light. Like, a lot of times we complain so much about our state or our county or our federal government doing this or that when we're not paying attention. And, one thing we really can do is be effective locally. And it's so much easier. I'll just say this, that like that group, there's like 47,000 people that live in our whole county. We're relatively rural area, and it's a big county to have only 47,000 people in it. And that group grew to like 2,500 people. I think it's close to 3,000 people now, which is actually like a substantial part of the voter base, if you really think about it, because of those 47,000 people, only so many of them are even eligible to vote, and so on and so forth. And to have like a community sounding board there where I post the meetings that are occurring for the school board or the
GOP meetings,
county commission, or the Republican Party, or that kind of stuff. Different community events, days of prayer on the square. We help to publicize certain things, and we also help to shine light on things that often go unnoticed. Usually you hear about what the county commission voted on after they vote, rather than, and no one's bringing it to your attention. So what was really interesting, just a quick testimony, is that 3 or 4 years down the road, we've had a lot of really positive impacts to help get the word out for things that needed to be elevated. And then even now, like the other day, there were some things on the docket to be voted for that the community was not really in support of. I don't know who put them on the agenda, but we were able to put that agenda up on this group, and the public pressure from it. I mean, all I did was literally share it. I didn't make a comment about it. I didn't tell people how to think about it. I just put it up there. And, 2 days later, because frankly, we actually have some awesome elected officials here in our county. They actually backed off of it. They said, this is coming off the agenda. We're not doing it. It was like, bam, it was that simple. And, this does not have to be a heavy burden to bear, where we can actually make some pretty important impacts in a godly way.
Through social media?
Have a presence just by shining the light. And that's been really encouraging to me recently, but also in the last couple of years. That was a little bit of a tangent.
I was like, so is it lukewarm Christianity, or...
What do you mean?
That's what I asked you.
Oh, and then we went all the way on that. I don't know if we're very good at this.
How do we get there? Like, how did we get here is what I'm asking culturally. I don't know how you got over there.
Well, I think it's no secret. Like, we all feel that we're busy in our own worlds. We feel like we have less importance in the big world. And
so we're apathetic
into maybe almost like a despair. Like, there's nothing I can do about that.
Little black pill.
A little bit of just people. I feel like I talk to a lot of people and they don't think they can make a difference. And I guess I would say that's the lie, like, that you're believing.
Well, we should know that, knowing how significant of an impact Charlie Kirk made in his very short time here, and in his, as a young kid getting started, what he was able to do in literally just 13 years that he was from 18 to 31, able to.
But I think a lot of people always point, and I'm not trying to overgeneralize, but the outlier, Charlie Kirk's the outlier. He's the person who devoted his entire life to it. And yes, he was extremely successful. But I think what we're really talking about right now here is, like, how do we get here, is Charlie Kirk did his part. It's the rest of us
that's what I'm saying. The lukewarm convictions of people.
That you don't have to be Charlie Kirk.
Right.
To be relevant and to make an impact in the kingdom.
Well, frankly, it's funny because having a kind of prophet gifting. I did this podcast in 2021 and 2022 myself, and got the reason why I ended that podcast, because people have asked me several times, why did I end it? Because I literally felt like it didn't matter. It didn't make a difference. Nobody was going to do anything. It was so the prophets, right? That they're going out into culture. They're telling people they need to repent. They need to change their ways. They need to come into, engage. They need to start standing up, whatever the prophets are telling the Israelites. And that's not what they want to hear. And even those of them who are interested in what is being said, they don't actually do anything with the information. That's really, really frustrating for somebody who's trying to be an activist or be somebody that's like stirring up a movement or a whatever, a revival, if you will. So it's exciting to see a little bit of momentum, but my biggest fear is that it's just going to die out like everything else, right? That it's just going to go back to normal. I remember thinking right after Charlie died that one of these days I'm going to get on Facebook and I'm not going to see a little Charlie Kirk clip, or there's not going to be anybody talking about it anymore. And that in and of itself is going to be a day of grief, because we've gone back, just, we're back to normal doing our things. And like, oh, that was a sad thing that happened. And I wonder even if people who went to church on the first Sunday, if they've continued to go to church. I hope they have. But, there is that spirit of like, I'll do it once, or I'll take action this one time, and then fade back into the apathetic.
Well, and that's always going to be like the statistics, or that is what's going to happen. That's human nature.
But that is like, in order for it to be a true revival, there is fruit. That doesn't happen. And so stewarding that or encouraging the momentum of that, because that is going to actually be, they're connected, right? The revival of the church is connected to the engagement of the church in the culture, the engagement of the church in politics, the engagement of church reading their Bible, understanding these truths, being more brave and bold and able to defend these viewpoints in a culture that is absolutely secular, absolutely without God, right? So we need the revival so much to happen first, so that the downstream effect is all of these things being corrected, right? So pulling people out of the apathy. But we've seen it in the past. Like, there has been true revival in this country more than one time. So I'm hopeful for that. But it leads me to another thought in regards to empathy. And the kind of complexity here is that this is one of the things people were throwing at Charlie Kirk after he died, was his quote about not believing in empathy, right? You might be familiar with that clip, but it's obviously a clip that's taken very much out of context regarding him talking about, again, ironically, gun violence. And that essentially his point is, we're being told something is empathy when really empathy is very rare. Empathy is different than sympathy. Empathy is, I feel the pain of the person. Sympathy is, I understand your pain, right? I can sympathize with it, as opposed to I feel it myself like you are feeling it. That's a very uncommon thing, empathy. But we are being told and manipulated by empathy within culture. And, it's like where the concept comes of the bleeding heart liberal. It's like, that's the weaponization of empathy against, or not against anything, but to be manipulated. It is against the people.
It's like feelings, pathos over logos.
Yeah, exactly.
Feelings over emotion over logic,
And this is where so many arguments are made from, so many debates. I actually was just watching, you'll be surprised to hear, a Charlie Kirk debate yesterday. And the girl just kept going, yeah, but I feel that blah, blah, blah. That's all she could say back is, he was talking about abortion. She claimed to be a Christian, and she was trying to argue abortion as a Christian, which is like, these things don't go together. But all she could do is say, yeah, but I feel that it's different when the mother has been raped. I feel that it's different when the mother, feels like she's going to be under this burden or whatever. It's like, well, you're that weaponization of empathy against you is why you feel this way, right? Like, you're being told that this is somehow different, or that you should feel differently about this thing. But I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on empathy and the lack of empathy? or that being a construct.
No, I wasn't seeing that coming. That curve in the road. I think.
You don't have thoughts?
Well, what I was thinking, and I don't know if this is going to tie into empathy, but is in relation to like the revival, like, and you were saying like it has to happen this way. I mean, I
The only heart change comes from God.
I don't
only
have to
heart
dictate
change.
the timeline, as because talking about apathy and the taking action, and the like, can I make a difference? Is it worth the effort to try to make a difference? All this like that kind of conversation we've all had with ourselves is like using the conspiracy theory metaphor or analogy. It would be like 25 years ago. I mean, I feel like I yelled into the abyss for the entire Obama administration, and so did many, many other people. And then, COVID came, and it was like this mass awakening. And frankly, it is tied to spiritual because people started just opening up their minds to like think to new ideas. And actually, ironically, the whole like being open to alternative narratives of world events also was very connected to people's spirituality too, because I feel like those things happened together. There was a big awakening during COVID as well. And I believe we're experiencing another like turning of the page in that.
Because, and Charlie would talk about this, when you see evil, there's almost this immediate recognition of, okay, the only reason I can identify something as evil is because I know what is good. It's like I can only call that line crooked because I know what a straight line is. You know what I mean? So there is this natural revelation of God and of his presence and his realness and goodness when you are confronted with evil, which we had a lot of evil in COVID. A lot of blatant, just evil. Which
is similar in a more acute moment, what we're so jarred by in watching Charlie Kirk's murder. It's really jarring to people to be so confronted directly by evil. But I think that we are seeing that like another revelation and another eye-opening to a lot of people. And what the Lord has impressed on me this time, because I feel like COVID was much more of a like, wake people up. This is awesome. Like, let's wake more people up. And now it's like, let's call people to action. Yeah. Like there's actually a lot of people, and I think that there's a lot of people who have spent the last few years, they're with their eyes open and having your eyes opened to the alternative narratives, if you will. It can be a heavy burden. And I'm sure someone who's listening to this, like, can relate to this. And I can go into like the process of how people go through, they kind of go through different things when you open your eyes to this stuff, but I will save that for another time. But just, there is a point where you almost want to go back to not knowing. You go back to ignorance because it's such a burden to bear sometimes. You're like, man, it was just so much easier when I didn't know all this. And that's a natural, okay thing to feel. But there is actually, it's not like that forever. And it's important to move through that to the part of like, well, what role do I have? And you don't have to fix the whole world all by yourself. I think that's like an important thing, is like, you will not be the Superman that fixes everything. But how can we be, just for the way I look at it, is between me and God, that when I get to him, I get the well done, good and faithful servant. That I do the part. Did I do my part? Exactly. And I think that like, biblically, it starts individually with yourself, inside your home, your children, what you have to steward, in your community, in your church, in your community. It's like, it doesn't start with the world. And then it starts right in yourself, in your home, in your backyard, and goes from there. And we're not done with our journey. I don't know where the Lord will or won't take us, but like we have kind of walked that out in particular, I would say since like January 6th, when we really got called to like local action and stuff. And we have seen so much fruit in, not like directly attributed to like we did it. That's not what I mean at all. But like we stepped out and did our part and noticed that other people were being called to step out in their parts. And we have.
And your action always inspires somebody else to do it, whether it's locally or otherwise. You just doing it inspires somebody else to do it.
And we've seen a lot of fruit. Like so this is where I'm tying this all in. When you do that, when you do step into the actual action part, because if you just stay in the world is overwhelming part, you can hang out there way too long and it can burden you and be stressful and anxiousness, and like move through that to action. Action is the cure for that, because then you go out in the world, you meet other people, you start to see how the Lord uses you to make a difference. You start to see the fruit, and you're really no longer anxious about it. Really and truly. Like I don't spend time being anxious about these things at all anymore.
You mean the larger world?
Yeah,
things.
just the bigger picture. Because I know where the Lord has me. I know what I have to do in front of me.
And what we can't control.
And you're meeting other people in face to face instead of just like scrolling on your phone, the doom scrolling and just like all the bad news. Now you're out being a part of the solution, meeting these beautiful, wonderful people who are also called to their role. And that's where like the fruit really starts to come.
This is why also we haven't spent a ton of time looking at every single potential, where the gunman could have been and what he could have done. We look in, you gotta stop drinking that drink because it's so clinkety dinkities right next to your microphone. And I'm gonna have to edit it. Please stop drinking your drink. No more drinks.
It's a really good drink.
Oh my goodness. I forgot.
Clinkety dinkities, I believe you were saying.
About your drink.
Oh.
This is what you do. What I was going to say before I lost my perfect, great train of thought, was it seemed to me after January 6th was a moment kind of, COVID, yes, but even more so January 6th kind of ushered in, well, that whole year from March 2020 to like March 2021. There was so much that happened in such a short period of time, so much change, so much impact to everybody's life, that there was such an intimidation factor, such a spiritual oppression. Although there's spiritual awakening, there's also oppression. There's fatigue. We were so afraid for so long. There was so much fear. And this time with Charlie's assassination, there seems to be, it's like a similar catalyst and an awakening again, but there's not the fear surrounding it. There's not that, there's not that oppressive spirit around it. It's like the opposite spirit, which is kind of really encouraging and good to see. And I don't know if it has to do with these things happening relatively near each other in the grander timeline of things, where like we were kind of pushed around for so long with COVID and then things kind of got back to normal. And then this happens and you're like, I'm not doing it again. I'm not going down this road of, the being afraid and the I don't have the answers and blah, 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 blah. So that's encouraging to me. And that's a big difference. That's why I'm so like, we need to do a podcast again. This is the moment. We need to keep this momentum moving. We need to encourage the saints. We need to get people in their word. We need to get them knowing what the heck is going on. And that's what I was going to say. That's why we haven't spent so much time navigating all of the different angles of possibilities of things. We look into every scenario as far as what are the people saying, what are the videos showing, whatever. But really, we can't control these things. It really, to me, I said this right out of the gate after Charlie was shot. It doesn't actually matter to me who shot him, who did it, who, like the specific person that pulled the trigger or whatever you want to say.
Or the how it happened, I think is what you really mean too.
I mean, right, because I know that God knows, and that's good enough for me, because you can't hide it from God, and everything that's going to be put in play is going to be for our good and for the just vengeance and justice that God is going to bring in this situation. So we can tire ourselves out. And there's a fine line. I actually posted this also, which met some resistance. Man, I should get a drink. I should get a drink.
I got one right here.
Give me a drink of your
I
drink.
got one right here. Do not clinkety dinkety.
Why do you have to have ice all the time?
I like it cold.
It's like a maraca. Is that a maraca? Okay. I posted that sometime the spirit of conspiracy theories actually starts to work against the spirit of revival. And I got some pushback on that because I am a conspiracy theorist, and we obviously talk about conspiracy theories. And I think there's a million conspiracy theories that are true and worth talking about, but it's a fine line.
You got to stop doing that.
It's a fine line balancing being so caught up in what we can't know that we miss seeing the things we can see, if that makes any sense at all. We can get really consumed. And what I'm cautioning people against, and this is kind of part of what happens when you start to see the alternatives to the narrative for what they are, is like nothing is what it seems. And that's the reality. Nothing is as it seems. Whatever they tell us, it's almost certainly not the complete story at the very least, or maybe even a complete and total lie, right? But what happens when we get so in the weeds over these conspiracies and these different scenarios that don't actually even really matter is we start to get really suspicious of everybody involved, and we start to be like, oh, Erica Kirk she was part of this plot to kill her husband from the get-go, and she's sex trafficking children. And I mean, this is real stuff that I'm seeing. And I'm like, guys, whoa, 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 whoa. You know what I mean? We get so in the weeds that I'm like, now we ourselves have wandered into gossip and sin our own selves. And it's like, this is not helping. It's not helping anybody move towards their Bible. It's not helping anybody know God. It's not helping anybody see clearer what's happening. It is a fine line to walk because we get really cynical and really skeptical.
I agree. And that's something that I've had to check myself on over time for sure. And I could not agree more with that. You do put forth
some pretty, I mean, you hung on to that monster variant. He kept saying there's going to be this monster variant and it's going to take everybody out of COVID. Like it's going to come late once our guard's already down. There's going to be a monster variant.
Wendy hangs on to me hanging on to that because
I was like, buddy, let go of it. We're actually moving on from COVID. It's going to be fine.
One of the things that, we're going to talk about that. This might be a good segue into this, is when you are paying attention to the alternative narratives, it can help you to see where we're going generally. And in that, you can sometimes kind of build out a
runway.
I would say, like, you can narrow down to, say, a spectrum of options. Like it could go this way and be, from here to all the way over here. And then you can kind of look at those things and go, is there anything I need to do in my life, or am I prepared for that spectrum? You don't know. Instead of preparing for just one, you can just kind of go like, what would prepare me for all of them enough? And that has served our family pretty well. Now, the monster variant theory came out of just basically like, okay, so all these folks are refusing the vaccine. What if the vaccine is actually for a different variant, and that all the people who are standing up for themselves
are going to get...
The trick could be that
the vaccine actually is effective.
The vaccine is effective, but not for COVID, but for the next thing.
I mean, so how ridiculous is that?
Well, and again, to be honest with you, it wasn't that. It's one of those things like, hold that over here just in case. I didn't like, how much did we alter our life over it? I would say like 0. Is that fair?
Sure.
Yeah. So keep that idea up there, because that would be one of the more like catastrophic, not sure how to deal with it situations if that did arise.
So would it be fair to say that the point of talking about conspiracy theories, looking into them, is not actually to be a detective and solve the exact scenario that happened in the past, but rather take this information, what we can get out of the story, and hold all these puzzle pieces. We don't have to try to figure out how they go together. We just have to try to say, okay, if all these puzzle pieces exist, what could it mean moving forward? So it's more about figuring out what is coming next, as opposed to solving a crime or figuring out all of the missing pieces of this, thing that happened in the past. 100%. I think that's actually, I'm nailing it right now. That is what is the spirit that's confusing, distracting conspiracy theorists. That's exactly it. Is instead of it informing us and calling us into action forward, we're getting really bogged down on every possible scenario where the devil is using it to make us incredibly skeptical of people that we could be giving money to, working with, organizing with, whatever, because everything becomes suspicious when we're trying to solve a giant puzzle with like all the edge pieces missing, because we're never going to find them. They've been eaten by the dog. We're never going to get the edge pieces.
No, that's really good. That's really good as far as just like how to apply it. What's the point of
talking about
getting into this stuff? And I mean, perfect
segue for our next section. We do want to talk a little bit about Israel and what Candace is running her mouth about, because we've gotten an immense amount of questions, as you can imagine, about that topic.
Talk about her like that, running her mouth. Miss Owens.
Keep it up.
You're doing fine.
Keep going.
Well, really, more than talk about Israel or Candace, like, yes, we're going to address those things specifically. We keep coming back to this concept of like being able to hold two conflicting ideas in your mind at once is such an important part of, if you're going to have your mind open and, look at the world in this bigger picture, you've got to be able to do this stuff. And we will use Israel as an example, because I think it's definitely a
wildly controversial
example.
Probably our YouTube channel's immediately going to be flagged.
But I think why not use the most...
we should probably call it Schmizreal or something.
Oh, geez. It's like COVID all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but the idea, and I don't care if you don't agree with us right now. This is just like for discussion purposes of how Israel can be like God's people, and that does not equate to holiness, perfect righteousness. Like, how do we get to where it's like, to where Israel cannot be criticized, or anything they do is God's desired will for them? It's like the whole entire Old Testament could almost be summed up by Israel doing the wrong thing, God bringing them back, resetting them.
Usually through tremendous judgment, persecution, what is that called? Exile,
And then usually like 2 days in the wilderness and they're building a golden calf again, and we're back on the same
Yeah.
storyline. And we understand that that's actually really like it's a metaphor for humanity, right?
Absolutely.
It's us, not just the Jews, right? But
they're just as human and flawed as the rest of us. There's also the separation of the people of Israel and the government of Israel, just the same as we can sit here and say we love our country and recognize how corrupt to the core and evil our government is. Those two things are true at the same time and often in conflict with each other, right? This is why we do want to defend our country and we do want to defend our Constitution, but we don't always have to defend Trump if he's doing something dumb, or, any cabinet member for that matter, or any person for that matter, because you can still love your country and you can still love, elements of something or someone and still point out when that is not the right choice, or that is a, flawed logic or whatever. But it has to be said that Israel is definitely, the government is also secular in nature too. Like, that's a whole element too.
yeah, I think, we just need to, like, we are called to love our neighbors, love our enemies.
We're also called as Christians to pray for Jerusalem
100%.
and peace in Jerusalem.
And we can love the people and pray for the people. We do not have to condone the actions
Of a government.
And I mean, this is where I'm talking about, like, the ideas are a little bit more complex, but it's shocking to me how many people cannot manage to hold that idea that it's the people. We can love the people, and we can also still not agree with the actions of the government. And
they can also still be God's people and be doing the wrong thing. That's biblical.
Which is biblical. Like, this is the crazy part, is like, have you read this story? Like, do you know how it goes? This is not actually off the storyline here. And the Bible is true. And you can also criticize the actions of the state. Like, those things are not in contradiction to each other. So when you see politicians saying, like, where the Bible says we have to support Israel, that's not exactly what it says, actually.
Also, that's again a manipulation of empathy. It's like being weaponized against us, that you have to feel for these people. As a Christian, these are God's people. It's like, hold on. There is, yes, like we said, we're supposed to love and pray for and intercede even perhaps for the people that are God's chosen people, but also recognize that Jewish culture is actually very confrontational to Christianity. Like, it is opposed to Christianity. We do not believe the same thing. Like, they do not believe or follow Jesus, right? And this is the religious Jews. There's plenty of Jews that are just Jewish culturally and don't actually even hold any religious beliefs, right? So what are we talking about here? Are we talking about just religious, devout, Orthodox Jews? Are we talking about the entirety of anyone who lives in Israel? I mean, keep in mind too, this is like the most abortion on demand state. Like, there's a lot of things that as Christians we would be absolutely called to stand in opposition to, that even the people of Israel are doing or agree with, or the way their culture has gone, right? So it is, especially when it starts to fold into the geopolitics of our country and their country, and how we connect and overlap, and how much money we spend, and
and even our sovereignty, like our ability to criticize. And even Charlie Kirk had very recently mentioned multiple times his discomfort and concern over his ability to speak freely about Israel. And that's just like a hard line for me, and in freedom of speech, etc. Like, I will respect someone's right to say all sorts of outlandish things.
You can be a racist. You're
true
allowed to
or
be.
not true. Yeah, I mean, it just exposes, you for you. If you want to talk poorly of a race or of a gender or of whatever, I mean, I don't care. You get to say that. I will have an opinion. You can have an opinion about me for what I'm saying right now. That's fine. But when it comes to these points where there is a group of people, whoever they are, that are pushing for limitations on your ability to criticize something, that's a red flag.
So
I don't
isn't
care.
there already laws in certain states?
There are a bunch of laws in like 26 or 30 something states. Mostly they refer to corporations, which is a very clever way to write the law in regards to there being
Not allowed to criticize Israel.
not allowed to boycott Israel officially, which is an interesting way of kind of keeping culture and
Business ties.
consumerism in line, there. And I think it's one of those things where they can get away with it in the background there,
So these
because
are state laws
on state law books
directing how that state is to
potentially fine a corporation for boycotting
Israel
specifically.
specifically. No other countries.
As far as I know. I mean, I need to look more into it, but yes.
But over half the states already have these laws, and there's other states that are considering laws currently in regards to limitations on how we can deal with.
And again, I want to be very, very clear. I would be against any country
having that sort of
it's irrelevant I don't care. Like, we're going to...
It just poses the question, why do we have them regarding this particular country? Why is this country so off limits for criticism, for...
And not just off limits for criticism, but so, like, we do a lot... I personally, and I'm not the only... There's tons of people, some very serious questions are being raised about how autonomous we actually are. Like, how much influence does a foreign power have in our country? And look, Israel's not the only country to have influence. The Saudis,
absolutely,
the Chinese, the European Union,
the UN is essentially that.
There are a bunch of countries that are trying to get, but it's very interesting that this tiny little country with a population
can force our hand into a war.
Smaller than our major cities, is able to have such a massive influence over our federal government and in state governments. To put it lightly, it's concerning. It's concerning. Where does it come from? How did they achieve that? What means did they use to achieve that? How bad is it? Because I don't even think we're really sure how compromised our sovereignty is or is not.
Which takes us back to Epstein and some of that, and why that's cannot come out for whatever reason. I'm saying that.
Which, let's just jump into that really quick, because we're there. We're there. There's no way around it.
We've laid the groundwork.
Everyone's really, really obsessed with the Epstein list, right? And that is only marginally important.
Whoa.
It's really, and people get upset about this, it's just funny, but what's really important to understand about Epstein, and this is the best we can frankly guess about it, is that it was an operation, a blackmail operation, a sexual blackmail operation between Israel's intelligence agency, which is referred to as the Mossad, Mossad, and American intelligence.
CIA.
The CIA, NSA, who knows? We have 18 of them or more. So, but either way, American intelligence, the CIA, the Israeli intelligence, and it sounds like, this is my impression.
I was like, right now you're telling what you think, not what we know.
Yes. Well, yes, they've done a good job at keeping it from being 100% definitive, but I'm telling you, everything is screaming this. It's just that like the documents haven't come out. Well, you know what? They won't come out for like 100 years, but then they'll come out and it'll say this. It's where I'm leading. But it sounds like it was definitively more Israeli, but we were absolutely involved in it, the American intelligence agencies.
It being?
The campaign or the operation to
entrap
business leaders, politicians, powerful people in explicit illegal activities with minors
on camera
in order to influence them,
blackmail
them,
manipulate, guide.
If you're not familiar with Whitney Webb, she's a phenomenal reporter on this, an independent journalist, and she wrote a book, and I actually have started listening to it on Kindle. It's a massive, but
isn't there like 2 volumes?
There is 2 volumes.
What
it's
is
like
the book
thousands
called?
of pages. The very moment I can't think of what the name of it is.
We'll put it
But it's in my Kindle if you want to look it up for a second while I talk. But she starts off with a history of sexual blackmail in the United States, in the government. And like, so first off, she establishes that like, first off, we've been doing this for a long time. This is not the first time. So like, let's just get that out there that there's a well documented history of using this for political purposes. So there's that. And then she kind of goes into a lot of the detail and different things and works her way all the way to Epstein and the things around it. So Epstein more than likely worked for the Mossad. Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was a known Mossad agent, had all sorts of, he was a very, very famous, spy for Israel. Lots of notorious, infamous stories about him all over the place. That's a whole nother issue. Just goes to show more ties with Ghislaine Maxwell, Ghislaine, or however you pronounce her name, being tied to Epstein and why and all that stuff. But that the crime that is committed, obviously on the surface, all the sexual exploitation of minors goes without saying. Horrible. That's that. But what's really important to note in this that we cannot miss is if a group of people used the sexual exploitation of these minors to subvert our democracy, to subvert our nation's sovereignty, to make the ballot box a moot point where they could just they could just get politicians to do what they wanted them to anyways because
they have them compromised.
That is
evil.
It's so evil. It's so like, in my opinion, everything's on the table to do to the country who's behind that. Or I'm sorry, the people who are behind that. I don't care if they're foreign or domestic, because in this case, it sounds like they were both. But that's treason if you're a United States citizen. You can look up what the penalty is for that. And that is a declaration of war on our country if you're foreign. And there should be the same penalty for that. So I can't
see why it's complicated and why we're not getting Epstein information or lists. It's called One Nation Under Blackmail.
One Nation Under Blackmail. Whitney Webb. You want some real constructive time, more than just conspiracy theories. That's like
documented,
proven. And you check her out on YouTube. Every interview she does, I'm fascinated by it. She is a fascinating character because she's like a walking dictionary. She can just pull dates, names, times. It's incredible.
That's not really what a dictionary does.
She is a walking
Wikipedia,
encyclopedia,
something like that.
But I enjoy listening to her interviews and stuff where she talks about this stuff. She is a wealth of information, real information on Epstein, and not just like there's so much disinformation around him. But either way, the real crime beyond the obvious is that subverting our democracy, subverting our sovereignty, and what it points at is our nation might be fully compromised due to these types of things. And they don't want, they cannot be discovered to have our own government. I mean, think about this. It's one of the worst crimes in humanity, in Western civilization, to sexually exploit a minor, right? That's unforgivable in Western civilization. Well, what if you found out your own government was a part of doing that to manipulate you and subvert the will of the people of the United States of America? That would be the most grotesque thing ever done by a state. And I'm telling you, I believe it was done. I believe it's occurred. And that is why
for a long while, like it's
for decades. Yeah. But before Epstein, it was kind of somebody else, and probably in different ways. Like, I think that the use of minors is a little bit newer, probably in the last 25 years or so. But it's irrelevant because even without the minor part, it's still horrible. You're subverting the will of the people, stealing away the sovereignty. It's a crime against humanity. It's just it's horrible. And that is why we will not get a list, and we will not get to the root of it. And the truth is, like, they will give us the list before they admit that the state was behind it, because that's what they want to protect more than they even want to protect those powerful people. But that's the mutual agreement, is what you have to understand.
Well, giving the list away gives the leverage they have over those people away also. So there is...
But that's the mutual understanding between the blackmailed and the blackmailee, is I'll take care of you, you take care of me, right? Like, that's the only piece between them.
You don't demand the list, and I will...
If you never give up the list, and we'll keep subverting the sovereignty for you. Does that make sense?
We'll keep, exactly.
And so
you keep my secrets, I'll keep yours. It's the best way to say it.
That's why we won't get a list, is because it leads to something, believe it or not, even more egregious than the crimes we are aware of.
So let's tie this together. If that's true, and that is it's where the evidence is pointing, but it is not a provable conspiracy, which we do tend to like to talk about more provable things that are kind of, but either way. So let's say that that is true, and that there is possibly Israeli intelligence involved in that scenario with Epstein. And then
100%.
Okay. So there's reason to question what is going on with Israel and their involvement in our country. And then you have something like Charlie happen after he is starting to, as a very public, very, very influential voice that is only growing in influence. I mean, let's just talk about for a second. He is probably, if you could point to a single person, and I would say even more so than Trump himself, but if not him, if not Trump, the single most important person as far as swaying an election, legitimately swaying an election, doing the on-the-ground work to collect ballots, register new voters, chase down, what are they called? Less likely voters. I forget what the word is. And obviously in his debates, persuading voters over to a conservative mindset, most certainly the youngest audience, the younger, cohort of the electorate would absolutely be Charlie Kirk. There's no question. There's nobody close. Like him and his organization under his direction absolutely is why the country has moved in the direction it's moved. So you can see also why there would be such hatred, because we've made such a, villain of Trump, and people are so emotionally manipulated that we think it's valid to shoot at our, political opponents or people we disagree with. But if Charlie Kirk, as that influential of a person today, right now, that's how big his voice is starting to question Israel, he's going to be able to make a very compelling case. If he's going on campuses and he's going to start debating this topic, he's going to be able to make a very compelling, logical argument that's going to be repeated and recycled through the internet, right? And he's just getting started. That's just now. Let's fast forward 10 years, 15 years, where Charlie is a presidential candidate, right? Wildly popular, whatever trajectory he was going to be on, the influence he was going to carry. You can see why that might be a theory people would have, right? And there's a ton of talk about this on the internet. This is probably the bigger, I would say more important and more relevant is this conspiracy theory than did the lapel mic explode and shoot Charlie in the neck, right? That's kind of irrelevant and it's in the past and is no longer important information, really. Maybe 10% important.
I'm way more concerned with, is there more to the story of who did it?
Who is
than how they did it
in it. And so we have Candace, who is right out of the gate talking about it, right? Like one of the first and loudest voices around this issue. Now, Candace, we have to keep in mind that she was very relevant a couple of years ago around COVID and then kind of fell off. A lot of people, like myself, stopped following her. She kind of went, actually, I would say she kind of pivoted and went more towards, Hollywood must repent, like more in that direction and less in the political sphere. So a lot of us who are more politically focused lost track of what she was talking about. And then all of a sudden she's back on the scene, talking about this really important thing and getting a lot of attention for doing it. That is something to also hold, that she has to say things that are keeping the attention on her, like as anyone would, trying to get views or clicks or whatever. And she is saying some ridiculous things also that are completely false, very provably false. She said right away after Charlie died that he was about to convert to Catholicism. I'm like, why did you say that? You almost immediately discredited yourself, and now no one's going to listen to what you're talking about.
What was her reasoning for that?
She's Catholic.
Okay, yeah. Is she? I thought she went to the Bridge in Spring Hill for a while. Like, did she recently? I thought her husband was maybe Catholic or something like that.
I think her husband is Catholic, but she is Catholic. But either way, she said that, and that's not true. Just in the end of July, Charlie recorded a video or whatever, talking about why the issues he had with Catholicism that were like deal breakers for him. So that's very recent as far as his journey. But again, it's kind of like, that's a weird thing to say because he's not here to confirm it. She's throwing out some weird stuff in the midst of things that are actually probably pretty on point. I don't know what evidences she has. I have not watched her show very much. Only just kind of collecting information and clips, to be quite honest and frank about it. But it's interesting that she is kind of the voice that brought it into more of the public debate. Now there's a ton of voices. There's a lot of people talking about it. And like we said, that is the more important thing to be paying attention to and to be discerning. And because, like we said, that is the piece that you actually need to put in the projector. You need to look at, okay, if that is true, what does that affect moving forward? As opposed to if the lapel mic blew up and shot him in the neck, I mean, what is that? How can I fold that into my, future? I'm not sure. But what's funny about the lapel mic thing, is that what it's called? Am I just calling it that?
Yeah, I can call it a lapel mic.
Lapel mic. Is the introductory theory as to it's the same conclusion. The Mossad, his Israeli security detail, has sabotaged the mic and, it is Israel. So it's like the same conclusion on the other side. But I'm like, we realize that it could still be the guy on top of the roof and it could still be the Mossad. Like, it doesn't have to be some weird thing to be the Mossad.
Well, and I don't believe it was the lapel mic, but like it could be the lapel mic.
It could be the lapel mic.
But whatever. And I do think it, in fairness to the conversation, the how does matter in respect to the who, because a random dude off the street is not going to do a lapel mic sabotage, but a nation state could. But in the whole Occam's razor thing, it is probably the more simple thing. And here's the thing. I'm not an expert, but I am a history buff and have read a bunch about intelligence operations and assassinations. And I would encourage, that's another thing. If you're into this stuff, like broaden your knowledge base of what the world does, like how these things are done.
They tend to come back around.
But like the elements that are all there, like, is not, in the end, I'm more interested in the who did it. The how can point to the who, so it isn't okay to like discuss those things, but we're so into the weeds about it that it's...
Another clarifying point is one of the videos talked about like, oh, it's just like the pagers. And to be fair, there was a bunch of pagers that exploded like a bomb, and that's how they killed these people. Okay, it is not just like the pagers. The pagers literally exploded the person. They did not send a perfectly directed shot into a neck.
I think you gotta. That's not a fair equivocation or not there, because if in my mind,
much easier to have a lapel mic explode and kill you.
No, that's. Can you design a lapel mic to do what the theory is saying? I would say yes. So is it plausible? Yes. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No.
It's not just like the pager. The pagers exploded.
Right, but nothing is just like, because you take on, in these situations, you take the specific mission and target and you tailor the means to the mission and target. So
would it be more challenging to create a teeny lapel mic that
I'll tell you right now,
a bullet directly into your neck?
Of course it would be more challenging, but that's what you would do, because you would not give, if the lapel mic exploded and killed him, it would scream from the rooftops, nation state assassination. So it has to look like...
It would scream from, you would immediately assume another country has killed him if his lapel mic shot him.
If someone had that level of a technological... So you're talking about, you've designed a piece of equipment that is reliable enough to get it 1 out of 1 times, like it has to work. And then on top of that, you're able to get that lapel mic into position, and then everything goes smoothly and you're not fully like discovered.
Nobody else gets shot. You also somehow manage to hide the entry wound. You also somehow keep the blood splatter from splattering out of the wound in the direction of the impact.
Are you making like a case for the lapel mic now?
No, I'm making it. Those things didn't happen.
Well, so...
There's no clear entry wound. Supposedly.
I don't believe it was the lapel mic. What I'm saying, though, is if you do that, like it's a nation state attack.
I'm with you.
It's not a random guy. It's not the Unabomber, you know. But in this case, but here's the thing, that it's in the nation state knows that, so they intentionally do pursue means
they also got
that don't look like a nation state.
Some random guy on the roof running around.
Right. So that's like, you know, that's basic deception. It's like, well, don't do it the way that only we could do it. You know what I mean? You have to do it a way that looks like someone else did it, right? That's, I mean, this is like basic stuff.
Murder mystery.
It's
classic,
still
101.
It does not exclude the nation state, because the nation state would make it look like it wasn't them, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, we covered a lot today. We went all over the place. Kind of flowed.
Yeah, I think again, in the whole holding two different ideas, like I like what Candace is doing in that, in the like freedom of speech element of like, let someone ask the outlandish questions. It's okay that someone is out there asking the outlandish questions and pursuing some answers to them. Now, you don't have to like every one of them. We can even be a little bit offended that they're doing stuff. Like I don't agree with everything Candace is saying, but I am actually glad she's doing it. That somebody is doing that. That's okay. And as free thinkers, as modern watchmen, we can hold those ideas that, like, I'm glad someone's out there doing that. I only need so much of it, but it's good that someone is doing it. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's all for today.
What were we going to say? Your tagline?
We should have written it down.
Well, but it's like we were just talking about it.
No. Doesn't work at this time of night, my brain.
But you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm referring to.
That I had a tagline?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really good. I'll remember it.
We don't have Bible verses for you. We don't have taglines.
We're going to get it together. We're going to really get it together, and you're going to be so impressed, okay? So impressed.
Might even hang a flag back here.
Ooh, we should.
We're actually going to clean up our office. I'm going to do the taxes and clean up the office.
This is not important.
Yeah, you're going to have a whole new view here. It's going to be amazing.
All right. Tune in, subscribe, share it, tell your friends, listen, all the things.
The Modern Watchman.
Bye. Thanks for joining us on the Modern Watchman podcast.
Remember, truth isn't just something we believe, it's something we live out every day.
Stay alert, stay discerning, and don't lose sight of the hope we have in Christ.
Until next time,
be watchmen. Test. Hello, test.
Hello, test. How would we know if it worked?
We're going to test it.